kamen Mitarbeiter täglich her. Das meiste wird für das Krankenhaus gebraucht, den Rest bekommen die Flüchtlinge, 4 Liter pro Tag. Das ist der Durchschnittsbedarf für einen Europäer. Refide Gojonovc findet das zu wenig. Sie sind zu 5. Das Wasser aus dem Hahn muss zum Trinken und für die körperliche Pflege reichen.
Cornelio Sommaruga, head of the International Committee of the Red Cross, was in Novi Sad touring the wreckage of the NATO airstrikes. Since these pictures were taken, NATO struck again, and the Serb authorities say NATO has now completely destroyed the last bridge over the river Danube in the city. Mr. Sommaruga is due to meet President Milosevic later today, hoping to get Red Cross staff back into Kosovo and see the 3 American servicemen captured by the Yugoslav army last month. Janet Barry, BBC News.
Well, within the last few moments, the European Union member states have announced that they have agreed to a tightening of existing sanctions against Yugoslavia because of Kosovo. And that will include a widening of the travel ban to include all senior Belgrade officials and businessmen closely associated with the government of President Slobodan Milosevic. Earlier, it will also include, I see, an extending of the scope of a freeze on funds held abroad by the Yugoslavian and Serb governments. And earlier, the Yugoslav government had tightened restrictions.
Bevor die Menschen hier in Korça ankommen, haben sie eine rund 20-stündige Fahrt in Omnibussen oder auf der Ladefläche von Lastwagen hinter sich.
Zuerst werden die Flüchtlinge registriert. Im Moment ist das Lager noch nicht ganz fertig. Wir haben jetzt Platz für 750 Menschen, aber es könnten einmal 5000 werden. Dafür müssen wir noch Toiletten und Duschen bauen, aber für die ersten 750 ist alles fertig. Ich denke, es ist hier viel besser als dort, wo sie herkommen. Es gibt frische Luft, Toiletten und fließendes Wasser für jeden. Bald kann hier selbst gekocht werden, eine Schule ist geplant und Gemeinschaftseinrichtungen. Das ist also eine deutliche Verbesserung für die Flüchtlinge.
Weniger weit von den Auffanglagern in Kukes entfernt und fast in Sichtweite der Grenze zu Montenegro liegt die Stadt Shkodra, in Deutschland unter dem Namen Skutari bekannt.
To shake their hands and had a short talk with all 3. I expect that tomorrow, Tuesday, our ICRC delegate and the ICRC doctor will visit them at length and also have the private talks as they are foreseen by the 3rd Geneva Convention.
After weeks of repeated strikes against river bridges in Novi Sad, NATO finally cut Yugoslavia's second largest city in 2. The last of 3 rail and road crossings collapsed in the river Danube. Residents are now forced to use improvised means of water transport to reach their homes and places of work. Disruption and damage to the civilian way of life here was recognized by the Red Cross, whose chief inspected the damage.
Is to express solidarity and compassion to the people here affected, civilians affected by the situation.
Keeps on broadcasting as NATO continues a wider air assault to force President Milosevic into accepting all Western terms for a peace agreement on Kosovo. Conditions he still rejects. Brent Sadler, CNN, Belgrade.
They carried the sick out of Kosovo. Refugees crippled by war collapsed from exhaustion. Up to 3,000 crossed the border at Blace, Macedonia, and some came with allegations of killings. This man lived near the town of Uroševac. We watched the soldiers in the forest shoot 5 old people, he says. I saw this with my own eyes. Aid workers say what alarms them is the reported activity in central Kosovo, an area where they allege war crimes are now spreading.
Atrocities and desecration afterwards, people's eyes being shot out, and it's really horrifying for the people that are already trying to leave.
A week ago, this crossing had run dry of refugees, but not now.
For the 3rd straight day, thousands poured into Macedonia Monday. As Kosovo continues to empty, room at the camps in this country was full days ago.
But they still come, the old and the very young. I know what's happening here, says this 8-year-old girl. This is war. And in war, the innocent often pay the biggest price. Bill Hemmer, CNN, Macedonia.
So-called patriots are lying to our people and saying that any day soon we'll be celebrating victory over the NATO alliance. They have to tell us what world opinion is.
Another sign of the government stepping up the public relations offensive when Cornelio Sammaruga, Italian president of the International Red Cross, ended his 48 hours here by announcing that Mr. Milosevic had given Red Cross officials permission to enter Kosovo at will and monitor conditions for civilians there.
Mr. Sammaruga is fighting on despite being cold-shouldered by the NATO summit. The alliance ignored their plea for weapons, reaffirmed plans to demilitarize the province and shunned their aspiration to independence. Pictures obtained by Sky News of KLA soldiers in action indicate they're prepared to carry on with or without help. Sky's Peter Sharp sends this special report.
A frontline KLA unit crosses into southern Kosovo, on the move to counter the Serb military build-up on this volatile border. These pictures, filmed by a KLA volunteer, were said to have been shot over the last 5 days in an area under their control near the town of Jakovica, 8 kilometers inside southern Kosovo. Traveling by road during daylight, the unit commander said his troops' morale was high. Many of the young volunteers were teenagers. The ranks of the KLA swelled by refugees who fled their homeland during the last month. Are you afraid, he's asked. If I was afraid, I wouldn't be here in Kosovo, he said. The KLA said this was the start of an attack on a Serb barracks, laying down probing fire, trying to get the Serbs to reveal their positions. And these are said to be some of the Serb soldiers killed in the attack. 47 were said to have died in this exchange of fire. KLA reported 7 dead and 13 injured, and there were no prisoners. While the KLA have yet to make any substantial advances against the Serbs, their on-the-ground intelligence is of vital importance to NATO in target selection for its escalating airstrikes. 120mm mortar fire probes the Serb defences, providing precise locations for the fighters above. The KLA now appears to be playing a waiting game, reinforcing its positions just inside Kosovo in the hope that a ground war will soon be launched. And for the local KLA commander, one bit of welcome news. Over the radio, he's heard that his wife and family have escaped safely into Albania. I'll stay here in Kosovo, he said, until it's time to lead them home. Peter Sharp, Sky News, on the Kosovo-Albanian border.
The border with Kosovo, the Macedonian army is blocking refugees and stopping aid getting to them. But the refugees are finding other means. Ethnic Albanians in Macedonia are using secret routes across the mountains to bring their kith and kin out of Kosovo. We traveled with local villagers who are smuggling the refugees in. It is a dangerous operation. The Macedonian government says it cannot take any more refugees. The villagers say they've been driven to this to help their fellow Albanians.
For example, if I want to take my sister who is among the refugees trying to come in, I can't because the Macedonian soldiers tell me to go away or they will kill me.
As we spoke, the first small group of refugees emerged from the mist. They'd been on the move for 2 days. Having escaped from Serb forces in Kosovo, they now had to avoid the Macedonian authorities. Then, as the clouds lifted, around 70 others came over the ridge above us. Even in the midst of their exhaustion, there was elation at having made it through. But for some children, the ordeal of their expulsion and exodus had left them drained. Young Besar Salah, whose father feared that his son wouldn't survive the last few hours of the journey, he was desperate to get his son to warmth and safety in the village. They rested briefly at a farm to gather strength and prepare themselves for the last stretch of the journey on foot down the mountainside. Besart's mother, Rafida, tried to comfort her son, who was still listless and barely conscious.
The Macedonian soldiers won't allow us to come along the main road. We've had to walk all this way so we could be smuggled in. What else can we do?
At dusk, the refugees boarded the tractors which would take them to their new homes. The local villagers rejoiced at having successfully brought in another human cargo. And by late evening, the refugees from Kosovo reached sanctuary. They were now amongst people who would care for them. The local villagers opened their arms and their homes to the refugees. There was food and warmth. For young Besart, it meant a new lease of life.
They have been in hiding for 1 month, endured 2 days of having to walk through a bleak landscape. But finally this evening, these people have at last found sanctuary in a small mosque in a tiny village in Macedonia. But the fact that their kith and kin here have had to smuggle them into this village bears testimony to the fact that the Macedonian authorities do not want these refugees to continue to come here. Ragi Omar, BBC News, Northern Macedonia.
Folgen der Strapazen der Flucht und der Bedingungen im Flüchtlingslager. Kinderarzt Joachim Gardemann ist seit 36 Stunden im Einsatz. Diesen ausgehungerten Jungen hat er über Nacht gerettet. Die besonderen Herausforderungen.
وقد أكد متحدث باسم هيئة الإغاثة التالية أنهم ساروا ل3 أيام في التلال والأودية الموحلة قبل أن يصلوا إلى حدود مقدونيا. وقال إن 6 من الأطفال أصابهم المرض وماتوا في الطريق ودفنوا على جانبيها، وأكمل الباقون السير. ويؤكد ذلك السكرتير هيئة الإغاثة العليا رون ريدموند، مشيرا إلى أن رجالا ملثمين من الميليشيا الصربية كانوا يفتشون القرى بيتا بيتا فيقتلون الرجال ويطردون النساء والأطفال إلى الشوارع. هذه القصص باتت وجبة يومية من الألم، لكن ما يخيف الكوسوفيين أكثر من كل آلامهم هو مصيرهم المجهول والمستقبل الغامض.
Preparing for another night of strikes. For the pilots, this has become a regular routine, and tonight was no different, with a number of strikes across Yugoslavia. NATO missiles again homed in on Slobodan Milosevic's headquarters in Belgrade. Badly damaged last week, locals say this time the target appeared to have been a television transmitter on the roof of the building. The aim has been to take out what NATO calls President Milosevic's main propaganda tool, Serbian state television. In this, NATO may have been more successful than it expected. A row has developed over Serb TV attempts to broadcast its news bulletins from other stations. The Deputy Prime Minister Vuk Drašković has denounced the move as undemocratic and an army takeover. These have stopped lying to the people. Although there's been no comment from Mr. Milosevic, he has in recent days been making a more high-profile nod towards peace. Yesterday he met with the president of the International Red Cross, Cornelia Samoragua, and invited the Red Cross back into Kosovo. And last week he met with Russia's newly appointed envoy to Kosovo, Mr. Chernomyrdin. Although the visit yielded nothing substantial, NATO has been at pains to acknowledge Russia's efforts for a diplomatic solution. The US Deputy Secretary of State, Strobe Talbot, is meeting with Mr. Chernomyrdin today to reassure him on this point. But at the moment, bombing is still the main focus of NATO's campaign, and until Mr. Milosevic meets its key demands, this is likely to continue. Dimitha Luthra, BBC News.
For the 3rd day running, they were stacked up again at the Blace crossing. From a distance, this ruthless and efficient ethnic cleansing could seem almost routine, but close up, it remains as hateful as when it started over 4 weeks ago. It has escalated, that is certain, but now, each time the struggling camps absorb another busload, it seems like a miracle. The House of Commons International Development Select Committee sent a team. They were shocked and indignant over what they saw and over Britain's tiny contribution to the evacuation.
We are not making a clear statement on the number of refugees that we're prepared to take, and the feeling is that we're being ungenerous and mealy-mouthed.
To see whole families here, mothers, grandmothers, children, babies, all torn away from their homes and their livelihoods and their way of life is, by any standards, an appalling tragedy.
There's a new transit camp at the crossing, and beyond that fence, Serb soldiers directed the clearance of no man's land and the plastic tents of the initial refugee flight. Preparation for more? Probably. This current formula for humanitarian relief is breaking down, and at the bottom of it all is a question of numbers. So with each new wave, we ask them now the same question: how many more? There are lots behind us, said this woman. 50 to 60,000, said this man. And someone must find somewhere to put them. Andrew Wilson, Sky News, at the Kosovo-Macedonian border.
Serbischen Industriestädte Kajak und Kraljevo. Über Opfer und Schäden ist bislang nichts bekannt.
Plus tun. Mit dem Mut der Verzweiflung kommen diese Frauen in Prizren-Morini, Albanien an. Seit Tagen hatten sie sich jenseits der Grenze in den Bergen versteckt. Sie sind geflohen, um die Kinder zu retten. Die Männer blieben in den Verstecken. Sie hatten von Erschießungen albanischer Männer durch jugoslawische Einheiten gehört. Hier werden die Frauen und Kinder erst einmal mit dem Nötigsten versorgt und dann in Lager gebracht. Doch die Angst um die Männer bleibt. Warten, die Hauptbeschäftigung für viele Vertriebene. In Blace, Mazedonien, müssen diese Neuankömmlinge stundenlang im Regen stehen, bis sie abgefertigt werden. Allein am Montag sind es um die 3000. Im Lager warten sie auf Nahrungsmittel. Die Flüchtlingslager sind voll, 3-mal mehr Menschen als geplant leben in ihnen. Gesundheits- und Sicherheitsrisiken steigen. Wir bitten die Welt, uns zu helfen, Flüchtlinge auszufliegen. Wir bitten die Regierung hier, uns zu helfen, uns mehr Raum zuzuweisen. Rund 170.000 Flüchtlinge sollen in Mazedonien sein. Für viele ist Blace erste Anlaufstation. Die Helfer befürchten, dass sich die Katastrophe von Anfang April wiederholen könnte, als hier Zehntausende unter menschenunwürdigen Umständen lebten.
Con 2 civili, 2 granate alle 11:30 di ieri sera contro l'area logistica del contingente francese a Kumanovo, una zona a ridosso del confine con la Serbia e quindi densamente abitata da serbi di Macedonia. Sapevamo che poteva accadere, rispondono i militari francesi. Da oltre un mese abbiamo perciò preso tutte le misure di sicurezza contro attacchi terroristici e lancio di granate. Per questo, forse, non ci sono state vittime. Ma è un chiaro salto di livello dopo che la scorsa settimana una jeep francese fu assaltata e bruciata a Kučevište, un'altra zona abitata da serbi. Anche i nostri militari raccontano di quotidiane manifestazioni. Avversione per i militari italiani, che comunque adottano misure di sicurezza analoghe alle altre forze NATO. E la tensione contro le forze dell'alleanza si aggiunge alla situazione grave e confusa per quanto riguarda i profughi, che continuano ad arrivare. Dopo una notte infernale per sistemare nei campi dove non c'è più posto quelli che hanno passato il confine ieri, stamattina altre migliaia di rifugiati, 10 autobus e un treno in arrivo. Non abbiamo dove metterli, siamo frustrati, non li lasceremo nella terra di nessuno, ma non possiamo che sistemarli all'aperto, dice l'Alto Commissariato dell'ONU per i rifugiati.
Anche i soldati albanesi in rassegna sono qui per protezione al campus di Kukes 1 a ricevere il cardinale Camillo Ruini, oggi in visita. Per fortuna è una giornata di sole.
Ha avuto fortuna, siamo arrivati con una bellissima giornata, il viaggio è stato molto buono, adesso così possiamo visitare finalmente questo campo così famoso e diciamo anche così prezioso. Cattolici, musulmani, ortodossi, qualunque sia la loro religione, siamo tutti uomini, abbiamo in comune la dignità di esseri umani e di popoli che deve essere comunque essere protetta e difesa e riconosciuta.
Il cardinale Ruini ha visitato l'ospedale e i malati. Nel campo vivono 6.000 profughi e il lavoro non manca al tenente Rovazzani, direttore sanitario del corpo militare della Croce Rossa. Parti, neonati da assistere, feriti da schegge. Intanto il plenipotenziario dell'ONU, Stefan de Mistura, tenta di convincere i capi kosovari, dove per la prima volta è accettata una donna, a visitare le future città d'accoglienza a sud dell'Albania. Gli scafisti di Valona non perdono tempo. Sono arrivati nei campi di Kukes a proporre direttamente i loro servizi. Auto più gommone, 1000 marchi e il viaggio in Italia è assicurato.
Despite NATO's sustained bombing campaign against Yugoslavia, many of the country's borders are still open. 2 luxury coaches a day arrive at this Budapest bus station from Belgrade, packed mostly with women and children fleeing the bombing. A journey which used to take 5 hours in peacetime takes 12 today. Serbs come to Hungary because they don't need a visa to enter here, but they hope to get a visa to travel on to almost any country where they won't hear the air raid sirens. Ironically, perhaps, many of these people are seeking refuge in the heart of the enemy camp, in countries taking part in NATO's bombing campaign against Yugoslavia. But it's not easy for a Serb to get a visa nowadays. Public sympathy in the West is for the ethnic Albanians fleeing Kosovo, not for the Serbs fleeing NATO. Outside the German embassy in Budapest, almost all those waiting are Serbs. Some left Yugoslavia in the last few days, by bus, train or private car. Others already work in Germany and have come here to try to get their children or other relatives out of Yugoslavia. What started as a rapid exodus of the rich has become a headlong flight of all social classes. Today, hundreds are gathering outside the Austrian embassy. They've heard that a list of successful visa applicants will be read out. This woman has a 9-month-old baby and hopes to be able to join her father in Vienna. Countries like Germany and Austria, with large numbers of guest workers from Yugoslavia, have been almost overwhelmed by the demand. And they, like most other Western embassies, will normally only give visas to close family members of those already resident. And even that process can take days or even weeks.
I'm happy. I'm just happy that I'm not somewhere where the bombs are falling. That's the only thing, to go away, but I wish I could go back right now. I mean, I miss my country.
The problem for these people, say migration experts, is that their status has not yet been defined.
At the moment, I don't think they're considered refugees.
The long-established Serbian community is trying to help those who reach Hungary. But its leaders worry most about what will happen when the war ends and men of military age too are allowed to leave.
It will be a very serious problem. After, I think that many of refugees will not go back to Yugoslavia, and many of them try to go to other countries, for third countries. And after the war, the industry or the economy of Yugoslavia will not be able to absorb people.
At Budapest's East Station, more people arrive from Yugoslavia. Estimates of the number of Serbs who fled to Hungary suggest about 5,000 so far. But every day more are arriving. The Hungarian authorities still regard them as tourists. But if the war continues and Western embassies do not let them travel on, Hungary may be forced to open new refugee camps, this time for Serbs. Nick Thorpe, BBC News, Budapest.
This was never supposed to be a place for people to live. Now it is home for more than 5,000 refugees. The leaking, dilapidated buildings are what's left of a cigarette factory. In today's Albania, it seems that every square inch of shelter, even shelter as desperately inadequate as this, must be pressed into service. The food is basic, but there is enough to go round. The challenge here is finding space for the people who continue to flood in.
The rate at which we are receiving influx of refugees against the available or potential capacity of the camps would still have problems accommodating more refugees.
In these conditions, it's difficult to stay clean, but they are trying. Everyone knows the risk of disease. Some people have come here from camps on the mountainsides near the Kosovo border. They've been told that conditions are better in the country's plains and lowlands. For many families who've made the trip to Shkodra, Albania's second city, this is the new reality. This is a deeply depressing place, and the overwhelming impression is that nobody with any choice would stay here. But of course these people have no choice, and that's the way it's going to stay until clean and efficient purpose-built refugee centres can be opened. 2 minutes down the road from the tobacco factory, there's a very different scene. The Austrian army has built this camp from scratch. It's not luxury, but the living conditions are clean and comfortable. The Austrians have also erected a fully equipped tent hospital, complete with operating theatre. It shows what can be achieved, but this camp would take just 5,000 people, even when it's fully open. For most of the refugees in Shkodra, there's no prospect that things are going to get better anytime soon. What they all want is to leave this place and return to their own homes. Jeremy Cook, BBC News, Shkodra.
Kosovari anche per stemperare la tensione a Kukes, non solo le paure della guerra, ma anche la difficile convivenza tra profughi e kukesini, perché ci sono in questo distretto almeno 30.000 rifugiati accolti nelle case per solidarietà o per soldi. E al primo campo italiano arriva il cardinale Ruini, presidente della Conferenza Episcopale Italiana.
C'è un carico di dolore enorme, il dolore della guerra.
Certamente c'è un dolore che affidiamo a Dio, perché solo Lui può consolare i cuori, può dare la forza di una speranza che va al di là del tempo, al di là della vita presente.
All'eliporto militare parte invece un gruppo di 8 sindaci, 8 rappresentanti dei profughi, per un giro negli altri campi di accoglienza dell'Albania meridionale. È la strategia dell'ambasciatore ONU de Mistura per convincere i profughi a lasciare Kukes senza partenze forzate. Molti infatti preferiscono restare vicini al confine della propria terra. Ad un mese dall'arrivo dei volontari italiani, a Kukes il sottosegretario Barberi.
L'obiettivo principale è quello di raggiungere le famiglie albanesi che ospitano rifugiati che hanno certamente bisogno di assistenza, oltre quelli ospitati nelle strutture collettive. Quindi anche questa seconda parte della missione arcobaleno darà un sostanziale aiuto ai rifugiati.
Sopra una barella improvvisata, questa anziana donna cerca di conquistare un posto sull'autobus che la condurrà lontano dalla guerra. Il confine di Blacea, in Macedonia, è di nuovo assediato dai kosovari in fuga. L'Alto Commissariato ONU per i rifugiati stima che nelle ultime 24 ore siano arrivati in Macedonia altri 3.500 nuovi rifugiati. 1.250 sono quelli partiti verso l'Europa per i trasferimenti cosiddetti umanitari. E così il totale dei kosovari in Macedonia salirebbe a circa 140.000 persone. Nell'ambito del piano per svuotare la zona attorno a Kukes, potenzialmente pericolosa e sovraffollata, i profughi vengono portati in altre località dell'Albania. Questo è il campo di Elbasan, una città albanese 250 km a sud di Kukes. Il campo è stato allestito dall'associazione umanitaria della Mezzaluna Rossa, la Croce Rossa Turca. Ogni settimana arriva un convoglio dalla Turchia, racconta questo funzionario. Il campo è per 1.500 persone, ma ce ne sono 5.000. Migliaia di persone che si arrangiano come possono per ritrovare un po' di ordinaria quotidianità in una vita stravolta dalla guerra.
Non si sa se è ancora il previsto esodo di massa oppure se siamo ancora alle avanguardie, ma circa 1.500 profughi sono arrivati tra la notte scorsa e stamane sui litorali della Puglia, dove la situazione dell'accoglienza è entrata in difficoltà, anche perché i centri del Salento da giorni fanno registrare il tutto esaurito, visto che